how to go from standard form to factor form. Really not much was new today, it's just like a part 2 of the lesson, but we did cover the important integer rules. So like what happens when you multiply a positive times a positive, what's your answer gonna be? What about when you multiply a positive times a negative, what's your answer gonna be? Negative. And when you multiply a negative times a negative, your answer is positive. If you don't know, then check in your calculator. Although the more fluent you are with this, I think the easier it'll be to factor. So I always remember it, that if you have an even number of negative signs, that your answer will be positive. So like here I have no negative signs, 0 is an even number, my answer is positive. Here I have 2 negative signs, 2 is even, my answer is positive. Here I have an odd number of negatives, therefore my answer is negative. Another way I've heard it explained that I do think is really good is that when good things happen to good people, that's a good thing. When good things happen to bad people, that's a bad thing. And when bad things happen to bad people, that's a good thing. That's another way you could remember when you multiply what your answer should be. Okay, so there's that. And also when you're adding integers, if they're the same sign, I don't think you need to worry about that. So when you're adding integers, that would be like positive and negatives. When they're both positive, your answer is going to be positive. When they're both negative, your answer will be negative. But if they have opposite signs, so adding integers with opposite signs, really you are actually subtracting like the whole absolute value of the numbers, and then you keep the sign of the larger number. Again, these are things you could check in your calculator, but the more fluent you are, the easier it'll be to factor. So here's an example of opposite signs. Let's see. Negative 12 plus 7. Is my answer going to be positive or negative? Negative, because you always keep the sign of the larger number. What is the answer? What is negative 12 plus 7? And then you keep the sign of the larger number, so it's a negative 5. So really, in my head, I subtracted them, 12 and 7, but I always keep the sign of the larger number. Let's try a different one. 8 minus 14, that one's easy. You're subtracting, that one's pretty straightforward. What is 8 minus 14? Negative 6. So 14 minus 8 is 6, but you keep the sign of the larger number. Let's do another one where it is actually adding. Let's see. 13 plus negative 4. Is my answer going to be positive or negative? My answer is going to be positive because the sign of the larger number is positive. But when you get your answer, what is my answer? 9. And I normally don't write positive 9, but you get the point. Keep the sign of the larger number, but really you're actually subtracting. Does that make sense? Any questions? So then a couple examples that I'd like to show you. Let's practice. I showed you a few ways that you could organize your information to make it more like a puzzle and less like you trying to remember random facts. So let's do the diamond method. Let's start with this one, just it's only on the screen. If I'm using the diamond method, what has to go on top of my diamond? Negative 16, because the way you set it up is A times C. 1 times negative 16 is negative 16. Your V value goes on the bottom. What's my V value? I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to the top. but add to the bottom, and signs do matter. Don't tell me what it is, just everyone think about it. Two numbers that multiply to -16, but add to 6. Okay, what is it? And if it multiplies to a negative, one of them has to be negative. What does it have to be if it adds to a 6? It has to be on the 2. So then once you found the numbers that make it work, you write it in factored form with the sign, I didn't mean to make that an X, with the sign corresponding to like what it had to be to make it work in the puzzle. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's try another one, like this one. No, let's do one with negatives. Let's try this one. What would have to go on the top of my diamond? A -30, so always keep the sign that's in front of each term. What would have to go on the bottom? Number 1. -1, again, always keep the sign that's in front of each number. I know I scrolled down, let me see if it'll move. I scroll. Oh no, my letters will move. Let me put it up here. -30 on top, -1. Thinking of two numbers that multiply to the top that add to the bottom. Don't say it yet. There's lots of numbers that multiply to 30. There's no way I could configure 1 times 30 to get -1. 2 times 15, again, no way I could get -1. 3 times 10, not divisible by 4. 5 times 6, and then I can't do 6 times 5 necessarily, like we're already at the end. So I in my head went down the list, 1, 2, 3, not divisible by 4, 5, 6, like it starts to overlap. So these are all the ways I could multiply to 30, not including negatives. Which one could possibly give me a -1 when I add? And which one would have to be negative? If it adds to a negative? Okay. So then for that one, it would be n plus 5 and -6. So there is a way, I mean, occasionally they give you some that are impossible. That's probably an accident if they do that, but there is a pair of numbers. So if you can't think of it, maybe go down the list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 until you see an overlap. And then just start playing around with the negative sign until it works. Questions on that? Okay, so the practice today was 7.07. I'll go right now, and make sure it's there for everyone before I forget. Any questions right now though? I do just want to share this information with you. Tomorrow I will be at a training, so I will not be here, but I will still be working. So if you need anything, I'm still reachable by email. But here's the sub plan. I always leave sub plans. They're always in the slides in Schoology. There's a slideshow for every single day. So for tomorrow's slideshow, they should have it and read it to you, but otherwise, here's what you're doing. I'm still including a little 5-minute break, but after that, you need to be diligently working. So you need to get this done, which would be the practice for tomorrow. I'll leave a video for my algebra students to watch. And yeah, you can do the practice from there. And then I'm also going to leave a coloring activity for you guys to do. And it's going to be worth assessment points. I need you to make sure that when you do it, that you are showing work. I should not just see answers. That will be part of your grade. If there's no work at all, if there's only answers, then it'll just be a 0. I'm not even going to check for completion or accuracy. But I am also grading on that as well. And then the coloring part will be extra credit should you get to it. So maybe bring your own coloring utensils. In the math lab. So I know some of you have different algebra teachers in this week's folder, so this is where you find all the slides if you ever need to go back to them. But I only put this in here for the students that don't have me for algebra. So if you don't see the assignment in your algebra, go here and do it in here, and that's where I'll give you the mastery points. And then you should have the answers and you can transfer it to your algebra class when it is posted. And then here's that coloring activity. Here, let me show you what it looks like, but you'll get the paper tomorrow. All right, these are all things that we've been practicing, going from standard to factor form. So I need to see, like, if you're doing the diamond method, do the diamond method. If you are doing the box method, do the box method. Or maybe you're just checking to make sure what your answer is multiplies to give you this. But I should not just see answers. And then based on the instructions, it'll tell you what number to color that, what color to color that number. So say that my answer is x minus 4 in parentheses times x minus 5, then I color all the ones red. And blah, blah, blah. And here's what the coloring page looks like, so you can, you know, have some time to do that. I do always, in my sub-plans for math lab, always include, like, you know, tell me who's just using the entire hour as free time, so I can go see that they have all of this stuff done. I do still want you to turn this into the bin, even if you don't finish. I'll give it back to you, write down what you did, give it back to you, you can resubmit for more points. You should be able to finish it in the last video. But any questions on that? Okay, any questions from the practice? Any unit 7, Romina? Number 4 on the days. If you also need help with that one, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so number 4 on today's, and these should be squared. I'm gonna have to go back and fix that formatting, but hopefully you can tell those are supposed to be squared, not 2 times x. All right, if you don't need help, can you like? All right, but we are rewriting it into factor form. So I like the diamond method, that's the one that I think makes the most sense, but it's up to you. If I'm setting up the diamond with this one, what needs to go on top? A negative 28, always keep the assignments in front of each term, and what needs to go on the bottom? And we're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to negative 28 and add to 3. So you don't have to tell me the answer yet, but just tell me some numbers that multiply to 28. Like 28 and 1, but there's no possible way I could make that equal negative 3. What else? Okay, that could work. And since we multiply to get a negative, I know one of these has to be negative. Since I add to get a negative, it has to be which one? So then when you're putting these in the blanks, the order will matter because they do have different signs. You would have to put the 4 here and the 7 here. They already have a minus. So you don't want to put minus 7, you just want to put 7. Does that make sense? I have seen on tests where maybe this is the answer, but they say type in if it's blank, like if they want you to put the negative. So then you would put 4 and negative 7 if that was the case. But in this one, they already have a minus 6. Okay, questions on that part? So now for this other part, set up your diamond. It'd be negative 28 on top, 3 on the bottom. What multiplies to negative 28 but adds to 3? This one's really similar to this one, except for what? Now the 3 is positive. So to make it where the 3 is positive when we add, what 2 numbers does it have to be? And which one would have to be negative since we multiply to get a negative? the 4. Okay, so knowing your integer rules helps with that. And again, order matters, since they have the minus here, I need to put the 4 here and the 7 there. Questions on that? Okay, let me show the answers, just to make sure that it's right. Oh, we're good. All right, other questions? Rita? 3 on today. So match each quadratic expression in standard form with its equivalent expression in factored form. Again, yours might be shuffled, so make sure we're not just blindly copying, make sure we are looking at the correct one. So I set up my diamond, it goes A times C on top, right now in these lessons, A is 1, you'll see what happens when A is not 1, there's an added step. But A times C, I get negative 35, B goes on the bottom. I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to negative 35 that add to negative 2. What are they? Okay, perfect. Positive 5, negative 7. There's only a few numbers that multiply to 35 in general. We have 35 and 1, 7 and 5, and I'm pretty sure that's it. Like, you don't want to have any decimals, you want integers. But it's not divisible by 2, 3, 4. It is divisible by 5. Not divisible by 6. It is divisible by 7, and that's where I know to stop. Like, this is all that it could possibly be. And for this one, since it multiplies to a negative and adds to a negative, it has to be this one. Where the 5 is positive and the 7 is negative. Okay, now the next one. Set up the diamond, table 6. Can you tell me how to set up the diamond for this one? Good. And then class with 2 numbers, make this one work. Multiply to 35 to add to 12. Five and 7, both positive. So then this one. Table 2, set up the diamond. What would it have to be on top? Good, and what on the bottom? So multiplies to a negative but adds to a positive. What do my 2 numbers have to be? Negative 5, positive 7. Good. Put it on this one. And then process of elimination. This one must go here. But we'll see. 35 on top, negative 12 on the bottom. Always keep the sign that's in front of each term. 5 times 7 multiplies to 35, but if it adds to a negative 12, then these both have to be negative. So if it's positive when we multiply, they have to have the same sign. That helps you figure it out in your own time. Let me make sure the key is right. Any questions on this one? Okay, number 2 on this process. So good on this question. Okay. Number 2. So let's see, write a plus or minus sign in each box, so the expressions on each side of the equal sign are equivalent. So it looks like we're filling in all the factored forms and they're giving us all the standard forms. So we have to set this up. It would be negative 54 on top, negative 15 on the bottom. They even include the numbers we're going to be working with. So this problem is specifically focusing on the signs. So these 2 numbers will make it work. What does it have to be to multiply to a negative and add to a negative? Which one needs to have it? Negative. Be 18. Because if it adds to a negative, that means the bigger number needs to have that sign. So the negative needs to go here. A positive needs to go here. Don't put any extra spaces or anything. That's negative, positive. So the next one, we have a positive 54, positive 21. They already told us 18 and 3. We just gotta make sure the signs work. Do these multiply to a positive and add to a positive? So then these should both be positive for this one. All right, this one, I'm trying to squeeze it in so you don't get confused, but I think I'm making parts to get through. So that one's a negative 54 and a positive 15. We know we're working with 18 and 3. Multiplies to a negative, so I should have one negative sign. Which one does it have to go on? The 3. It adds to a positive, it should go on the 3. And then for part B, 54 on top, negative 21 on the bottom. We know we're working with 18 and 3. Do these signs work for the whole diamond? It does multiply to a positive and they add to a negative. So then do these have to be, both of them have to be negative. Okay, and I'm gonna check the key. But hopefully you guys will see that. Any questions? Okay, so it's like it's negative, positive, it's gonna work up. Other questions at all, Faith, on this one? So we have find two numbers that multiply to negative 40 and add to negative 6, and then multiply to negative 40 and add to 6. Remember, this is kind of like our diamond method. We want to know what multiplies to the top and adds to the bottom. And then for here, we're multiplying from negative 40, adding to positive 6. So to start out, I think a good method would be to just list a bunch of numbers that multiply to 40 and just see which ones are possible that could give you a 6 when you add or subtract. Let's see. So I just always go down the list, like starting at 1 times 40, 2 times 20. I don't think 40 is divisible by 3, but I'll still check. Okay, not divisible by 3. 4 times 10, 5 times 8, 6, don't think it's divisible by 6. Again, I always just check, because you never know. 7, not divisible by, and then once we get to 8, it's like the same number. So this is my list. Which of these could possibly give me a negative 6 when I add or subtract them? Four and 10. And which one would have to be negative? The 10. If it adds to a negative, then it has to go on to 10. I don't think the order matters for these, so I'll check to make sure that it doesn't matter the order. Sometimes they'll say list the smaller number first. But I'll go and check the key. 4 and negative 10 do that. So then down here, only difference is that now we're adding to get a positive. So which one would have to be negative? 4. Good. And then here is negative 4, positive 10. I'm gonna make sure the key doesn't mark you wrong, so do 1 something. Yeah, it looks like they have all the alternatives to the top. Okay, so it shouldn't mark you wrong unless you're getting that part of it wrong. Okay, other questions at all? From any unit 7? Let me know. So yeah, tomorrow I'll leave some helpful videos, but I do think you know what you need to know, is just more like little things added to it.